I think over time, I've been even more pleasantly surprised where how many people are willing to help, but they're just not asked, right? So I would say if you're in that realm of kind of stuck, ask for help, and you'll see there's going to be incredible people such as yourself that I'm sure are going to be able to, give counsel or make connections. But you got to take that first step.
Welcome to the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. Your guide on this journey is Amy Sylvis, ready to unlock the keys to a life of true abundance. We're diving into everything from financial freedom and optimal health to meaningful relationships, geographic freedom, and everything in between. It's about creating a life rich in experiences, purpose, and joy. Get ready for empowering conversations, expert insights, and real-life stories that inspire you to live abundantly. If you're ready for the secrets to an abundant life, hit that subscribe button now, and let's get started.
Secrets to Abundant Living podcast community. I am delighted to see you on another episode here, and I have such a treat for you today. Someone who is near and dear to my heart that I've known for, at least 15 years. This is Dr. Afshar. To give you a little bit of a background on how we know each other, he was my cystic fibrosis doctor, pulmonologist for many, many years. And I was just teasing him. He's responsible now for the middle-aged 44-year-old lady things I'm going through right now with perimenopause and graying hair and wrinkles. All jokes aside, just an incredible human being, physician, and someone who truly I wouldn't be here without. And it's just such an honor to have him here on the podcast to talk a bit more about his incredible story and the amazing difference he's making in so many people's lives. So, Dr. Afshar, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. And thanks for that kind and generous introduction. You definitely are maximizing my role and diminishing all the things that you have done. It's a testament to all the success with how you approach life in general. So I've learned a lot from you as well.
Oh, you're too kind. You're too kind. I would love for folks to understand a bit more about what you do. We'll kind of use that as a starting off point because obviously your profession is just part of who you are, but I think it is such a notable and exciting thing to understand a bit more. So can you tell us a bit more about yourself?
Sure. So I'll start off with the question of what I do.
Yes.
I'm currently the medical director of the Lung Transplant Program at UC San Diego. I've been in this role for a few years now, back in San Diego since 2015 after leaving Los Angeles. I'm a father of two, a husband of Pastor Razai, a son of Mohammed and Nushimakui, and then a brother for Kamyar Afshar. And I'm also an uncle of a beautiful young lady, Kiana Yassini. So I mention that because what I do in general revolves around the essence of connection with people. And doing this role as a physician, not just a medical director for the lung transplant program, we see a lot of people who are just in vulnerable states, and
Right.
you want to have that connectivity, want to have someone who's on your side. So that's how I've been approaching my practice. And I think is also a testament of what has happened throughout my life. As you may have heard in the news with what's going on in Iran,
Right.
that's where I was born.
Right.
We left Iran when I was 4, so immigrated here, and our life was turned upside down. We were in a middle class in Iran, and at that time, in middle class, you would actually have college students be funded to come to the United States or go to Europe, get their education, and then come back to Iran and really serve the country. So my dad worked in a equivalent like the EPA, I would say, and my mom was a postal administrator. But then when we came here, they had to find new jobs, new culture, new language. And now we went from middle class to very low income. And through that, kind of climbed the social ladder. And again, that perspective of how it shaped how I approach care for individuals. Yeah.
Wow. Just there's so much goodness to unpack there. I'm so impressed. Obviously, I know firsthand how you treat patients and hearing, how much you care about your family and the context in which, your family came to this country and what you all had to overcome from having what sounded like a very comfortable life to starting completely over. Living in the lung transplant space, where, as you alluded to, I mean, you're working with people who are likely living some of the most difficult time of their life, right? The lung transplant is, you don't get there, just overnight. There's quite a bit that goes into that. How do you keep up this positive attitude and this disposition that I know that you do? Because truly, there's a lot of different ways you can be a physician. There just are. But you choose to not just give your clinical experience, but really care about the person. That takes a lot of effort. Can you talk us a little bit through what that's like and how you maintain that positive impact?
I would say is just, I guess, mindset is a cornerstone of it.
Right.
If you talk with many physicians and they reflect back on their first questions, they're like, why do you want to be a doctor?
Mm,
It was always, I want to help people.
right.
And so now in my role of kind of a mentor for kids who want to go into medicine, I ask, why do you want to do it? And if your answer is, I want to help people, the counter to that would be how, well, you can help people in many different ways. Why this route? And
Right.
this is not an easy journey, right? So you have to go through university. You have to be upper echelon in terms of the grades that you get. So you're testing multiple tests.
Right.
And then you go into medical school. Again, higher level of expectations. And then by the time you get into residency, you also have national boards, you have sleep deprivations in terms of the sheer amount of information that comes to you.
Right.
And in a way, you have to translate English, right, into medical language.
Mm,
And then when you go into clinical practice, you have to translate back into English. And for some people, it may be a little bit more challenging, right? So I guess maybe my perspective of having someone who my first language wasn't English, it was Farsi, going through ESL, growing up in communities with diverse languages, you have to figure out that part of the education that kind of goes through is cultural,
mm,
is religious, but language, right? And then you have the health literacy part. And there's plenty of people who have high education, but health literacy is not necessarily there. So it's the showing of dignity and respect and saying, this is what we see in your care. There are great intentions by many physicians to do best by them. But then there's also all these competing interests that are happening at the same time with regards to taking up physician time, right?
mm,
So the amount of information that comes to them, the amount of information that they have to provide, all this in the context of keeping that clinic visit at a certain cadence, as you will, to meet all the questions that are asked as well. When I first started, it would probably be one question for that session. Now it's a minimum of like 6 or 7 questions, right? And then the other thing that I learned over time is that there are a lot of questions that people are not asking when they come to that clinic visit, right? So again, when I was more heavily involved in the cystic fibrosis clinic, there were certain questions that people were trying to get at, but they weren't really asking it, which was like the spirometry, that breathing test. It's down. Is it up? What does it mean if it's down? Does that mean I'm hospitalized?
right.
Does it mean that I am rapidly getting worse? Am I dying? Do I
Right.
need a transplant?
Mm,
All these things that even though they're not asking it, I started to become more preemptively sharing that information. Hey, it's maybe 5% down on your breathing test, but there's a lot of factors that go into it. How are the sinuses? Are you having upset stomach?
right.
Was it good effort? Or were you tired? Are you having pain? All these things that are leading to why that number is down. Or if you need a hospitalization, we're doing it preemptively so that you don't go from a mild exacerbation to a severe one. But again, I think part of that is the connection that I've made with
Mhm.
people
Yeah.
and understanding what really matters to people, right?
Wow. Uh, As you're talking, I'm just thinking through all of these diverse skills that you've been able to implement that make you such a successful physician and, one that's so beloved by patients, including myself, of being able to apply this clinical knowledge, but within the context of the patient's lived experience. So even just saying, oh, what are the questions behind the questions?
Mhm.
That takes a lot of careful consideration of observing, not just seeing this as, a pair of lungs surrounded by, a bunch of other organs and a brain on top. This is an entire person that lives within a context of maybe their job, their socioeconomic conditions, their background, their mindset, their energy, all of those things. And that maybe intuition isn't the right word, but it's just such interesting insight into how you've been able to practice medicine and what goes on in, kind of in the background as you are treating patients. I'd love to go back because I should have asked this question first, but because this is the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast, what prompted you to want to get into medicine, let alone pulmonology and transplant? I'm assuming it's to help people, but I'm going to do what you did to your mentees and ask more.
Yeah, I think part of this is, you have to go through self-reflection to
Mm.
really see if this is what you want, right? And I think it goes back to my upbringing and what we had to endure and climbing the social ladder. The values that were instilled into my sister and I by my parents was service to others, giving back to society is cornerstone,
Mm.
especially from a society that received us and is giving us opportunities. So there was times where I was actually thinking about I got really interested in government and policies.
Okay.
And so I had a conversation with my parents. I'm like, I think I might want to go through the route of like diplomacy. I think it can make a major impact. My dad's like, well, you can, but then his fears and my mom's fears was, would something like happen to them in the future happen to us? Meaning that if you have to move from one country to another, are there certain skill sets that you can have that it can be translatable, right? So it made sense to me. So I started thinking about it and observing, well, I see a lot of doctors who then became senators, congressmen, and led into policies, but you can't do it the other way. So that was one avenue, right? And then my dad and my mom were in the dental field. So I'm like, well, naturally, let me see if that's what I want to do, how to help people. But it wasn't in line with what I want to do. It was in line with my sister. She's a dentist out here in
Okay.
Coronado. And then it's also research based, but I tended to get bored really quickly. So the aspects of bench research for me, it didn't really make sense.
Okay.
And I needed to have that connection to people. And that made the most sense. So then when I started to volunteer at age 16 in the hospitals, you start to see again how just simply like getting a cup of water for somebody is a generous act,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And so as a 16-year-old, you're like, oh, is this really significant or not? And that, initial return on connectivity then grew more and more and more with every aspects of involvement in the healthcare field. Initially, again, I wanted to pursue to see where I would see my strongest suits to help. And then so then it became a matter of, is it surgery? Is it medicine? My inquisitiveness kind of fit the path of medicine, but I still wanted to have a little bit more hands-on and probably through abundance, getting a lot of things taken care of for people in the more critical nature. That's what I gravitated towards.
Right.
And then it became exposures to people who are needing transplant. And I thought that was just a fascinating realm where you have to know not only the people that we just talked about and all the social aspects and all that, but the immunology part, infectious disease standpoints, you have to know from head to toe from when it comes to lung transplantation. And then you have to start forecasting. What are not the next step, but the next 5 steps? And how can you leverage certain decisions that you're making for the patient, sometimes in collaboration, but sometimes you're going to have to say there's no negotiation. In order for us to be able to get you to the successful journey, we have to do X, Y, and Z. And we can't have you work against yourself. You can't be the
Mm.
obstacle, right? And so then I think transplant found me more than I even found transplantation. So every day I wake up, I'm just very blessed to be able to take care of folks and seeing that immediate impact where someone was in really dire straits, right?
Right.
So right now, you and I may be really not thinking about the fact of how easy it is to get out of bed, go take a shower, change our clothes, go to work, and you know, but the people who I take care of, they're talking about like walking only 50 feet before they have to stop, wait a couple of minutes before they can do it again. They need help with showering, they need help with bathing. And so again, part of that dignity that kind of gets lost, I feel that if it was my loved one or myself, that that's what I would want, right? Not to diminish my role in society just because I need more assistance. And so you see those kind of folks who come to us, or those who are really rapidly progressing and needing to be on breathing machines, or even another machine that directly gives oxygen and takes out carbon dioxide through the system, which is called ECMO. And I think the most proud of for our program is we've developed such a great culture of collaboration and putting our patients first, but at the same time, working together to help one another to then help our patients as well. And that there's a United Network of Organ Sharing. They have semi-annual benchmark reports. And when you're looking at someone who's in need of transplantation, based on the severity of disease, they get a certain score. It's now called a composite allocation score. But then there's these ranges that you kind of go through, like not as extreme to the extremes. And consistently over the last 5 years, we have been 30 to 60% on the extremes. And we're either like 15% higher to like 30% higher than any other program within the nation. And our outcomes, again, long-term outcomes, is one of the top in the nation. So again, just the approach of compassion, care, but also the intuitive aspects, and really be curious and how to find system needs to be bending for the patient. This organization has just been phenomenal to work with, and I couldn't be more proud. So
Oh, wow. Those outcomes numbers, just to go off of and stack what you just said, are so impressive. I mean, I don't think many folks realize, and I don't know the exact statistics. Maybe I should know more as someone living with CF, but lung transplant is not an easy thing to do, let alone to manage and survive long term, right? There's a lot that goes into that. So to be able to have those types of statistics when you're taking on more severe cases or people that are in more dire straits just speaks to not only the knowledge and, the way you practice medicine, but the culture that you've created and the teamwork. Just incredible. And as you were talking, I was really thinking about, I was thinking about a lot of things, but just how fortunate we are to have physicians from various backgrounds with various lived experiences, right? I had Dr. Jennifer Taylor Kauser, my personal cystic fibrosis physician out in Denver, who spoke about being an African-American woman and what that brings to the table. And, just the fact that you were born somewhere else and your parents instilled these incredible values. We all get these different lenses with which we can see the world, and we can apply other lenses too, but it just adds so much to it. You're the perfect example, and your clinic's outcomes are the perfect example of what that lived experience and diversity can bring. Just so impressive.
I would say that I completely agree with you. Our surgical director, Eugene Goltz, he current landscape of Ukraine, but he lived in the Soviet Union.
Wow.
And so he was in the military there. He came out here. Again, he ended up becoming a nurse first because he was a medic in the military before.
Okay.
And then he saw some of these cardiothoracic surgeons that he worked with. And he thought to himself, I can do this. Why shouldn't I do this? Put himself into medical school, went into general surgery, cardiothoracic surgery. And I will tell you that one of the most phenomenal surgeons in the country, that he does high complex cases.
Right.
But there's a little bit of a joke where you say, oh, he's a surgeon, or he's a doctor before a surgeon. And the nuance aspect is a matter of he's not just thinking about just doing the incision and the surgery, but he also holistically looks at things. And so our collaboration from, me from Iran, him from the Soviet Union, and along the ways, the shared experiences that we've had,
Yeah.
even though we came from different areas, very similar. And interesting enough is that we both have the same favorite movie, which is History of the World Part 1,
Okay.
right? We both love the whole mazas of Lebanese foods.
Ooh.
So it's very interesting how we come from different parts, but very similar approaches to life and food and culture and the humor. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Have you ever thought about having multiple streams of income? Instead of relying on just one stream of income where you're trading your time for money, how would you like to free up more of your time and live a more abundant life? As a listener of the show, you're invited to attend one of our upcoming trainings where I'll give you an inside look into how you can add passive income and get all the other perks of recession-resistant real estate investing without the headaches of being a landlord. I'll also be sharing some hidden mistakes to avoid and the criteria I personally look for when evaluating potential investment opportunities. To reserve your seat for free, go to sylviscapital.com/webinar. Again, that special link to reserve your seat for free is sylviscapital.com/webinar. I look forward to seeing you on the training. And now back to the show. What an amazing thing that our country gets to benefit from some of the best and the brightest from all over the world, right? How fortunate we are to be whether as patients or just, people in general. Doctor, I think a lot about, and this might be a little bit of a sore subject, but a lot of people that are listening to this podcast, maybe in their life, they're struggling. They could use some encouragement, the light at the end of the tunnel. It seems like a dark time. You were frontline during COVID as a lung transplant physician. I can't fathom, I really can't, what that time must have been like for you. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would love to hear, if you don't mind sharing, kind of what kept you going, because you are clearly a compassionate, a caring man who, lives with purpose and isn't just doing this to check the box. You care deeply about your patients, but I can't imagine the discouragement and the waves of people just really struggling in what you saw. I don't know how dramatically different it was from kind of your everyday practice pre and post, but I'm imagining it was tough. Can you walk us through a little bit of how you kept going?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just to paint a picture that the first few days of emergency declaration, right? Like I was one of the ones who had to come to the hospital.
Right.
And on the streets, there was just my car, just driving through.
Right.
On the highway to come to the hospital, it was just myself and another car. And when I got to the hospital, all the corridors pretty much barren until you got into the units. The first few days or so, I think for everybody was just utter unknown in a
Right.
way, right? Like, what do we do? Over time, I think the adaptability of many healthcare providers was a testament to why we were able to succeed. And using the knowledge that we do have in the CF population, right, and in the transplant population, of how to go about making sure we take protective measures.
Mm.
This is where it came from, the whole masking and gloving and 6 feet rule. These weren't made up, right? These were practice patterns for many years.
Yeah.
And then you end up again trying to decipher what is noise and what is signal. And that's been something that I've been telling our mentors, our mentees as well. There's a lot of information. Doesn't mean it's truth.
Right.
There's a lot of information, doesn't mean it's always accurate. And so I think in the time of social media, we starts to accelerate our time to decision in split seconds. I'm not sure if you know before when the newspapers went more online, there were studies that came out that people were reading articles in about 3.4 seconds. That means you're reading the headline, maybe the first paragraph. So
Right.
then the content wasn't really there. And then
Mhm.
we hear about the whole 140 characters on Twitter. You hear about, how social reels, the most medical information is coming from unverified sources.
Right.
So we all kind of knew this. And so then we had to do a counter of we have to now do more education
Mhm.
and misinformed, most likely. So one patient that kind of stood out was it was a younger gentleman who we flew out from Southeast, the US on ECMO, came to us, and he was on about 165 days on ECMO before we ended up transplanting him. He's over 3 years out, doing well. But one of the main questions was, he's like, I don't want to get the COVID vaccine. I said, why? What is it? He's like, well, I've done my research. I said, okay, great. Explain to me, where are you getting your research from? He goes, well, mainstream, but also on the fringe. I said, okay, walk me through what is defined as mainstream, what is defined. So I wasn't like, oh my God, why are you? I was trying to understand.
Yeah.
And he said, well, look, I got my information. I said, well, let me give you an example of what I'm trying to get across. because not every doctor will understand every context that is specific to that role.
Yes.
For instance, if you are asking a dentist
Yes.
about immunizations, which I had gone from somebody else, I said they may not be your best source.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really want to know about immunizations, then you want to know people who are in that realm, like infectious disease doctors. What are the sources? That's where you want to go for that.
Right.
If it'd be the same thing if I want to know about pregnancy, I don't go to gastroenterology, I go to OBGYN. So I
Right.
try to rationalize it from there.
Yeah.
And then it went from I don't want it to, okay, I understand this is the rationale for it. I understand my immune system is going to wreak havoc with what you may have to be doing. So I need to reduce my risk. Ended up getting his vaccinations, ended up doing all the other things that is required for a successful transplantation.
Right.
And, he went through it and he's been doing well. So
Incredible. 3 years out. I didn't even realize you could be on ECMO for that long. You said over 140 days. Was that
his was 165. We ended up transplanting another person on 262 days.
no kidding? Wow.
Yeah.
That's just something. And so you're not only trying to help people that are dealing with this novel virus, but you're also trying to deal with misinformation or malinformation, right? And instead of combating them and forcing them into something, it sounds like you chose the approach to engage. And, shockingly to nobody, that has great outcomes, right? You take the time to listen and
Yep.
to share information. And so all of a sudden, it's shared decision making, maybe in their mind, as opposed to, oh, my doctor's making me do this thing.
Right.
So skillful, so skillful. Well, I want to pivot to your amazing children who I've had the pleasure of knowing for several years and who are just incredible people all the way around. I would imagine being where you are in the medical field, the time it takes to be as successful as you are, to also invest clearly what you've done in terms of raising your incredible children. How do you strike that balance? I mean, that's just incredible what you've been able to do.
I think luck has a lot to do with it. One is I have a very understanding wife and children that they generously share me with people, right? But there's a few, I think, philosophies that Paris and I had was we really instill values at the very first stages of their life, up to like the 6 to 7 years, right? So there's certain consistent patterns that they have. One thing that we always strive for is making sure that we have dinner together every night. So even if I had to come home, have dinner, and then go back to the hospital, then we would do that.
Right.
And we would have talks, right? And so usually on the weekends, if I'm not on call, then our breakfast would be taking a little bit longer and really getting to know them and understand who they are. I think sometimes immigrant families are pretty notorious of you should be a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, an engineer. And again, from the Iranian community, that's what we're known for. For Paris and I, we were very much more on the mindset of whatever you do, you just need to make sure that you're successful enough. And you're going to have to put in a lot of work for you building that foundation. And then other things come around in terms of opportunity, accolades, and then it all works out. So one is they were receptive, and I hope that, with how Paris and I do things, they were modeling some behavior as well. So yes, I mean, now is second quarter of her first year at UC San Diego undergraduate in international business. So wants to go into international law potentially. And part of that was devised from her role in this organization called Flowers for the Future, where she was helping young girls in Afghanistan through the internet and learning. Aideen right now, he's a freshman at the Canyon Crest Academy, a competitive swimmer. So he's balancing out that athlete-student role. And he's still trying to figure out what he wants to do, maybe in business, maybe in medicine, maybe in law. So we kind of give him, find opportunities or thinking about those opportunities for him in our discussions. So, yeah.
Incredible. So spending time intentionally, even if it means having to move a few things around, obviously modeling the behaviors and the values that you and your family hold. Yeah, I haven't seen them in a couple years, so hopefully I get to see them soon. But my goodness,
Absolutely.
the few times that I've been able to interact with them, it's just so clear how amazing both of their parents are. And I'm I feel very fortunate and blessed to have a front row seat to see the amazing things that they're going to do in life, because it's clear you've
I
given them
appreciate
such a
it.
great start. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I wish we had a lot more time, doctor, but I'd love to end on, clearly you've created abundance for yourself, giving to patients, how you care for patients, raising these two incredible children that are going to go out into the world and make an impact, creating a great family, obviously, and I'd love to hear for folks that just feel a little bit lost, maybe feel directionless, maybe they're mid-career and they're feeling unfulfilled and they want to create more abundance in their life. What piece of advice would you give them, or piece of encouragement to be able to find more abundance or get more in alignment with their values in that sense?
I would say that don't be too wrapped up in your own mind,
Okay.
and be if you feel like you have to be courageous, and just go out and ask somebody for a cup of coffee, cup of tea, get to know them. And through there, just then being able to see, are you able to help me out with either an idea or an opportunity, make connections with other people. And I think a lot of this comes into this determining between interaction and relationships, right? And
Mm.
so if you're building relationships, you will be, I think over time, I've been even more pleasantly surprised where how many people are willing to help, but they're just not asked, right? So I would say if you're in that realm of kind of stuck, have someone be a sounding board, ask for help, and you'll see there's going to be incredible people such as yourself that I'm sure are going to be able to give counsel or make connections, but you got to take that first step. Yeah.
That's brilliant. I love that. Involving people, not just sticking, inside your own head, but yeah, seeking counsel, asking for help, being vulnerable in that respect. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Doctor, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Just
It
so
was
special. You're an
it was a
incredible role
pleasure.
model.
Thank you so much,
Oh my
and
goodness.
I'm cheering you on constantly, and it's been just a pleasure witnessing all the success that you've had,
Oh.
and I'm looking forward to all the more successes that's in the near future for you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being an immense part of my story. I would not be here without you. And, I wouldn't wish cystic fibrosis on anyone, but my goodness, the community of providers and healthcare professionals, physicians like yourself that have elevated me and supported me is such a blessing. So I'm just forever grateful to you. If folks, by the way, want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you? And maybe they'll ask you for help or counsel.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
if they need any medical information, I would direct them to the UCSD health site. If there are specific lung transplant questions, they can call the phone number 858-657-5050. And then they can email me as well at kaafshar@health.ucsd.edu.
Perfect. We'll put that in the show notes. Thank you again, Dr.
Yep.
Afshar. I look
Thank
forward
you.
to seeing you and your family soon.
Same here. Be well.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights that will empower you on your journey towards abundance. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us, and it helps others discover the secrets to an abundant life too. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn, Amy Sylvis. Keep striving for your goals, nurturing your relationships, and embracing the adventure that is life. Until next time, we wish you an abundantly fulfilling day.